or dams. So we'll just go on to the dead loads and the live loads. Although yung ibang dead loads and live loads natin, hindi na siya relevant. Hindi na siya relevant because in your case study later on, I don't need like a very complicated plan. Okay, it's okay if you don't have roof, or rather you have a roof deck. That's just okay with me as long as what's easy for you to do. Okay naman ako doon as long as you did your part. Okay. So let's proceed with the dead loads. Can someone? Okay, hindi ko na naman yung screen. Dead loads, the basic definition of dead loads. May I call on Jonah? Andito ka ba, Jonah? Yes, Joanna ka na. Joanna, would you mind reading the first definition, the definition, 3.1.1?
Yes, sir. Dead load consists of the weight of the materials of construction incorporated into the building, including, but not limited to walls, floor, roofs, ceilings, stairways, built-in partition, finishes, cladding, and other similarly incorporated architectural and structural items, and fixed service equipment, including the weight of cranes and materials handling system.
Okay, so that's your dead load. So anything that is actually part of the structure, anything that's part of the structure and is not movable, okay, in nature, it's just stationary. That's what we call the dead load. So the dead load consists of self-weight and other types of equipment, perhaps service equipment, mga ganyan, including yung mga ganyan guys, tiles and yung mga railings ninyo sa banyo, yung mga rails sa banyo, especially if you are in a public toilet. If you are in a public toilet, di ba in a public toilet, meron kayong hawakan doon, lalo na pag umuupo kayo, okay? So merong hawakan doon, that is actually a dead load as well, okay? So those are dead loads. Anything that is in part of the building is not, is actually stationary and connected to the building itself, that is your dead load. So weights of materials and constructions are also dead loads. So yung ating cement, mga ganyan, that's concrete, mga ganyan, that's those are dead loads. Okay, then we have weight of fixed service equipment, mga ganyan, those are dead loads. Okay, so we have fixed service equipment, including weight of the cranes, those are dead loads. Okay. So although yung crane is actually moving, okay, pero yung crane kasi when you're doing construction, dinadagdagan mo lang yung height niya, mga ganon. So wala namang problem doon. Those are considered dead loads. Okay. Next, okay. So there are exemptions, guys, in terms of the weight of fixed service equipment. Okay, so allow me to read na lang yung 3.1.3. So in determining dead loads or for purposes of design, the weight of fixed service equipment, including the maximum weight of the contents of fixed service equipment, shall be included. The components of fixed service equipment that are variable, such as liquid contents and movable trays, shall not be used to counteract forces causing overturning, sliding, and uplift conditions in accordance with section 1.3.6. So I will be providing you later on the ASCE code. So basahin nyo na lang guys yung provisions nila. Okay, yung chapter 1 and chapter 2. For now, nandito kasi tayo sa chapter 3. Okay? So exceptions, okay, where force effects are a result of the presence of a variable components, that components are permitted to be used to counter those load effects. In such cases, the structure shall be designed for force effects with variable components present and with them absent. So there are actually components of a crane or mga fixed na service machineries, okay? There are, kasi meron dagdag bawas minsan yung mga yan, especially pag nag-maintenance. So we need to include it during planning stage. We don't have to include those, pero later on, okay, there should be an allowance for this particular type of variable components, okay, added into the crane, especially those that will greatly affect the building. Okay? So kung malaki masyado yung idadagdag at ibabawas ninyo, of course, you have to take into consideration yung mga yun. Okay? So for the calculation of seismic force effects, the components of fixed service equipment that are variable, such as liquid contents and movable trays, need not exceed those expected during normal operation. Okay? So pretty much self-explanatory yun. Okay? So we also have a vegetative and landscape roofing. So these are all part of your dead loads. Okay? So yung mga landscape nyo sa taas, sometimes kasi yung ibang building, meron silang anong tawag doon? Yung sky garden, mga ganyan, mga kineme. Tapos in the middle of the building, okay, if that is, especially in the condominiums, mga ganyan, meron silang open na part doon sa mga 20th floor, mga ganyan, open park, mga ganyan. Those are considered dead loads, okay? The vegetative and the landscape roofings, mga ganyan. And then solar panels are also considered your dead loads, okay? So, meron tayong soil loads and hydrostatic pressure, pero we will not be doing an in-depth study of this soil loads and hydrostatic pressure kasi hindi naman tayo mag-design ng retaining wall and dam. Okay, so meron tayong lateral pressure. What are lateral pressures? These are horizontal forces applied into the face of the building. Okay. So if this is your building, okay, this is the facade of the building. The lateral forces are those forces that acts on the facade of the building, perpendicular to the facade, okay? So those are lateral forces or pressure, okay? Then we have uplift loads on floors and foundations. What is uplift force, guys? What is uplift force? Let me call on Joshua. Joshua, andito ka ba, Joshua?
Sir.
What is uplift load or uplift pressure?
Yung pressure, sir, na nagpapataas.
Your pressure na nagpapataas. Yes, sige, acceptable naman yan. So the uplift loads or uplift pressure are actually a group of forces or maybe a series of tawag dito, pressure that actually tends to lift tends to push the building upward. Okay, so for example, if I'm going to put this or to submerge this in water, okay, there is this pressures underneath the building or that object na actually na pinupush niya yung object pataas. So those are uplift loads. And this is not only in the case of water, this is also in the case of soil, especially in your foundation. That's why when you designed your foundation or your footing way back nung RC ninyo, meron doon yung anong tawag dito, yung footing na meron siyang diagram na ito yung footing tapos malaki yung pressure dito, mababa yung pressure dito. Parang similar siya sa dam, okay? So at the hill and toe, mga ganun, I'm just not sure kung saan ba yung hill, sa may water side ba or sa dry side. Basta yung sa part na yun, yung hill and toe, mayroong part doon na mataas yung pressure, then yung kabila naman mababa yung pressure. Okay, so those are uplift loads. Okay, so meron tayong consensus standards and other reference documents. So wala tayong, in terms of this one, wala tayong consensus standards and other documents that shall be considered part of this standard. Okay, in this particular chapter. So wala tayong consensus. Okay. So yung tinatawag natin yung consensus na yan, are there any other provisions that you should know? Okay. For example, sa live load, merong mga consensus doon. Okay. So we need to consider yung AASHTO na code, mga ganyan. Sobrang daming codes kasi connected with ASCE. Pero we'll just concentrate with ASCE na lang. Okay. Huwag na natin i-discuss yung mga garage na truck loads, mga ganyan. Kasi hindi ko naman kayo bibigyan ng, hindi ko naman na kayo i-require na maglagay ng parking sa roof deck, mga ganyan. Kasi those are very complicated na. Okay. Next tayo, live loads. So what are live loads naman? Okay, may I call on Apple? Ito si Apple. Apple?
Sister.
Apple, would you mind reading the definition? First one is yung fixed ladder.
Fixed ladder. A ladder that is permanently attached to a structure, building, or equipment.
Okay. So guys, if you go to Jollibee ba 'yun? Yung sa City Mall. I mean yung dating City Mall guys, ha, yung malapit sa McDo, sa may sentro ba 'yun? I don't know. I'm not really familiar. Yung exit nila is not stairs. Hindi ko alam kung stairs siya ha, stairs siya. Pero ang alam ko noon pa, hindi siya stair, but rather it's a fixed ladder. Okay, when you say fixed ladder kasi, alam mo yung mga steel na ladder na naka-embed sa wall. Okay, those are fixed ladders. Hindi siya na-move, hindi siya natatanggal. Okay, kasi nga nandun na siya sa wall. Okay, nakatanim na siya dun sa wall. So those are fixed ladders. What about grab bar system? Okay, so these ladders pala are actually live loads. Although naka-attach siya, no? Okay, although naka-attach siya. So these are actually live loads. Next is grab bar system. Okay, so grab bar, guardrail, and handrail. Medyo may pagkakapareho pero magkakaiba yung mga yan, guys. Okay. So try natin si Margs Garcia. Nandito ka ba?
Sir.
Okay, would you mind reading grab bar system?
Grab bar system. A bar and associated anchorages and attachments to the structural system for the support of body weight in locations such as toilets, showers, and tub enclosures.
Okay. So yung grab bar, guys, ito yung mga support on the toilet. Okay, yung sinabi ko kanina na when you go to a public toilet, di ba, meron yung hawakan doon na naka-embed sa wall, mga ganyan, especially if you're an elderly. So yun yung grab bar na sinasabi natin. Okay, what about yung guardrail naman? Okay, so ang guardrail is actually a system of components including anchorages and attachments to the structural system near open sides of an elevated surface. Okay, so if you have a balcony or a terrace, guys, do you have a balcony or a terrace, mga ganyan, mga view deck, mga ganyan sa bahay ninyo, view deck, wow, okay, yung bahay niyo may view deck. Mga ganyan, guys, yung barikada doon sa along the sides of your terrace or your balcony, those are actually guardrail system. Okay, it prevents you from falling. Okay. Ayun, it prevents you from falling. Okay, so that's the key term or that's the key word. It prevents you from falling. That's a guardrail system. If it tends to support you on toilets, mga ganun na lang, shower tubs, that's the grab bar. How about yung handrail? Okay, so a handrail naman is a rail grasped by hand for guidance and support and associated anchorages and attachments to the structural system. So yung handrail naman natin, this is similar to your tawag dito, to your I don't know if meron kayo. Meron ba tayo nito sa St. Louis? Yung ganyan, yung handrail system. Yung mga stairs kasi minsan, guys, diba? Meron yung sa gitna ng stairs, merong hawakan doon. Ayun. May hawakan doon to guide you, mga ganyan. So, ito yung nakikita niyo sa mga stairs, guys. Okay, yung handrail doon, na kapag pagod na pagod ka na, hawakan mo lang yung stair, yung handrail na ganyan. Tapos, ayun, hingal na, especially if masyadong mataas yung inaakyat mo. So that's your handrail system. Okay? So, ang pinaka-importante dito, guys, is actually yung guardrail system. Okay, guardrail system. It prevents you from falling. You know what I mean. Okay? Next, we have helipad. You know what helipad is? Who knows what a helipad is? Who have seen or who among you have seen a helipad?
Landingan ng helicopters.
Sino yun? Anong name mo, dear?
Ako, sir. Si
Sino
Kelly.
nga? Anong name mo? Ano? Sino?
Kelly, sir.
Felix? Felix ba?
Kelly, sir. Kelly.
Kelly. Ay, si Kelly pala. Sorry. Hindi ko ako nakatingin dito, guys, sa ganun na. Hindi ko siya nakikita kasi yung PowerPoint. So, sila Kelly ata, meron silang helipad sa bahay nila. Ang yaman naman ito. Ayan. Yun yung landingan, guys, ng helicopter. Okay. So, ang yaman pala nila Kelly. May helipad sila sa bahay. Okay. Okay. So, aside from that, we have the definition of live load. Okay, live load naman. So, what's the difference between the dead load and the live load? Okay, so, Noel, What's the difference between the dead load and the live load?
Sir, yung dead load fixed na dun sa structure, tapos yung live load movable, sir.
Movable. Okay. So when it comes to the difference between the dead load and live load, the dead load is the one fixed. Yeah, that's correct. The live load is actually movable. Okay. Pero why did we consider kanina yung fixed na ladder? This one, why did we consider the fixed ladder as a live load then? If it is already fixed, it's not moving. Diba? Kasi ganito yan, guys. When you have a fixed ladder kasi, okay, everything that tends to cause vibration, those are live loads. Okay? Except in the case of seismic loading. Okay? Kasi when you have your seismic loads or earthquake loads, those are different, ibang usapan na yan. Okay? Ibang usapan na yan. Anything that causes vibration, aside from environmental loading like wind load, snow, rain, earthquake, flood, mga ganyan, and in turn, dead load, those are called live loads. Okay? So, yung ating fixed ladder kanina, okay, for example, nagkaroon ng fire drill or maybe nagkaroon ng fire. Of course, the fixed ladder, okay, pag may maraming tao doon, it will vibrate. Okay, it will vibrate. It will tend to jiggle, mga ganon, di ba? Lalo na kapag nagmamadali yung mga tao, nagpapanik na sila. So, sabay-sabay silang bababa doon sa may ladder. Ganyan, pag may sunog. So, ang mangyayari is that, wait lang guys, someone needs, okay. So, ayun nga, pag bumaba sila sa ladder na yun, nag-vibrate yung ladder kasi nagmamadali sila. So, that is actually considered as a live load. Anything that tends to cause vibration is a live load, except in the case of environmental loading. Okay? So, of course, the rain causes vibration, earthquake causes vibration, flood causes vibration, mga ganyan. Wind also causes vibration. Okay? So, ang pinaka-complicated dito, guys, is actually the roof live load. Okay? The roof live load. Okay, so what is actually a roof live load? Sandrea may asido.
Sir,
Babasa naman ako nitong roof live load.
roof live load. A load on a roof produced during maintenance by workers, equipment, and materials, and during the life of structure by movable objects such as planters or other similar small decorative appurtenances that are not occupancy related. An occupancy-related live load on a roof such as rooftop, assembly areas, roof decks, and vegetative or landscape roof with occupable areas is considered to be a live load rather than a roof live load.
Okay. So that is your roof live load. Now, sabi dito, vegetative or landscape roofs with occupiable areas is considered to be a live load rather than a roof live load. Sir, paano din yung kanina, yung landscape and vegetation na sinasabi ninyo? It's under the dead load. Okay, so ganito yan, guys. Okay. Itong mga vegetative or landscape na roof na ito na sinasabi, these are movable. Okay, these are movable. Meron kasi yung iba, guys, na yung mismong landscape nila sa taas, okay, or yung park nila, sabihin na lang natin yung park and, ang tawag ba doon? Basta yung park, mga ganyan. Yung mga lupa doon is already part of the building. Okay? Meron kasi yung mga ganun, guys, yung mga sky garden, mga ganyan. Especially if you're if nasa BGC ka, yung mga taas ng building, yung roof deck nila, ginagawa nilang park. So yung iba doon, yung soil is actually part of the building na. Kumbaga tinambak nila yung soil doon, it's not moving already. Ngayon yung vegetative and landscape roofs na sinasabi dito, these are actually yung potted plants, mga ganyan na pwede mong i-move from one area to another. Those are what is being pertained or what is being said in here, vegetative or landscape growth. So do not be confused. Anything that's not immovable, that's not movable, okay, in terms of landscape and vegetation, those are dead loads. Pero yung mga live load, yung mga vegetation and landscape na materials na pwedeng i-move from time to time, okay, those are considered live roof live loads, okay? So meron din tayong maintenance equipments, those are considered live loads, especially pag nag-maintenance kayo doon sa taas. Okay? Okay. Okay. Going back, meron din tayong screen closure. Ano tong mga screen closure na to? These are actually yung parang mga greenhouses, ganyan, sa taas ng bahay natin. Mga fiberglass na, anong tawag doon? Fiberglass na components, especially if meron kang sa taas ng bahay mo, meron kang open space doon, tapos it has fiberglass roofing, mga ganyan, screen closure. And then if you have a pool doon sa bahay ninyo, sa taas, sa roof deck, mga ganyan, or outside, or in the middle of your house, or in the middle story of your house, may mga pool kayo, tapos may enclosure siya na fencing, mga ganon, those are considered as live loads. Okay, so yung mga fencing ninyo sa taas ng roofing, that sa taas ng bahay ninyo, those are called live loads. Meron kasi guys yung mga basketball court sa taas ng mga bahay-bahay, tapos meron silang screen closure, mga ganon guys. Those are part of your live loads. Okay. Next, we have vehicle barrier system. Okay, so if you go to Robinson, yung ramp papunta sa parking area sa taas, it actually has barriers, yung mga concrete barriers doon. So those are part of your live loads. Kasi those are actually not fixed into the road, but it is movable. So loads that are not specified under the live loads, okay, for occupancies or uses not designated in this particular chapter, the live load shall be determined in accordance with the method approved by authority having jurisdiction. Okay, so other loads not specified in this particular chapter, we have to consult yung governing body, okay, in terms of the structural components. Okay, so kailangan natin i-consult ASAP, okay, sa Pilipinas, or maybe PICE, okay, mga ganyan, or by simply consulting civil engineers or professional civil engineers, okay, those who have a specialization already, perhaps they could tell us what to do with the loads not specified in this particular chapter, kung meron mang hindi na-specify, okay? So let's move on to uniformly distributed live loads. Okay, so under section 4.3.1 of ASCE, the live loads used in the design of buildings and other structures shall be the maximum loads expected by the intended use or occupancy, but shall in no case be less than the minimum uniformly distributed unit loads required by table 4.3.1. Okay, so the table later on, okay, the table that I will be showing you later on, those are the minimum values of the uniformly distributed live loads. But you can exceed, guys. You can exceed these minimum values. Okay, wag lang kayong bumaba dito sa mga minimum values na ito. Okay, you can go beyond the minimum values but not below it. Okay. So those are the required live loads. So how do we calculate the live loads? How do we calculate the live loads and the dead loads? Well, it really depends on the method that you're going to use. Pero I suggest you just use na lang the minimum values for you to para hindi na kayo problema later on. Okay. Though you can go beyond. You can assign the value on your own. Okay, para mas maging conservative yung design niyo. Although feeling ko hindi niyo naman ma-reach yung design or hindi if hindi nyo naman ma-reach yung sinet yung value, much better yun. Okay? Then we have also provisions for partition. So tawagan natin si Ronald. Ronald, andito ba si Ronald? Ayan, pakibasa natin yung provisions for partition. Okay. So thank you, Ronald. So in this section 4.3.2, guys, for example, you already have the drafted plan of your building. Meron ka ng plano nun, and then in the plan, it shows no partition. But later on in the future, parang plano ninyong lagyan ng partition yun to make the area more efficient, mga ganyan. Especially if you have an open space lang, okay? Especially in office setting, okay? Lalagyan niyo siya ng partition, guys. Pues, kailangan yung isama sa design consideration ninyo that later on you will be doing some changes, lagyan ng partition. So, in the computation of the live load, you have to add there 0.72 kilonewton per meter squared or 15 pounds per square foot. Okay? So, yung partition load niyo should not be less than that desired value. Okay? Mapameron man or wala, you have to add yung provision for partition if you're going or in the future, or should I say if in the future you will be adding partition on that particular area. Okay? So meron tayong exemption, syempre. Okay? So a partition live load is not required, okay, where the minimum specified live load is 80 pounds per square foot or 3.83 kilonewton or greater. Now, syempre naglagay kayo ng nag-set kayo ng mga minimum ninyo, di ba? Nag-set kayo ng mga minimum according to table 4.3.1. Okay. Ngayon, yung minimum yun na yun, syempre, if you want to add partition, you have to add as well 0.72 kilonewton per meter squared. But if your live load, ang sinet yung value ng live load is greater than 80 pounds per square foot or 3.83, okay, greater than or equal to, pues kahit hindi na kayo magdagdag ng 0.72 kilonewton per meter squared. Kasi kumbaga, naisama na yung partition dun sa 3.83 or greater. Okay? Any questions so far? Am I being too fast or sakto lang naman? Hello? Quiet.
Okay lang, sir.
Okay lang. Okay. Sa partial loading tayo, meron din tayong tinatawag na partial loading. Okay? So dito sa partial loading na to, pwede tayong meron tayong tinatawag na reduction factor. Okay? In the partial loading, dito, kinoconsider natin based doon sa type ng occupancy ng building, kung pwede pa ba nating bawasan yung mga minimum live load natin. Okay? So, yung full intensity of appropriately reduced live load applied only to a portion of a structure or member shall be accounted for. It produces a more unfavorable load effect than the same intensity applied over the full structure or member. So, roof live load shall be distributed as specified in 4.3-1. Okay. Pwede tayong mag-partial loading, pwede tayong mag-reduce if we deem it more economic and safe, especially if bungalow lang yung house or 2-story, we can actually reduce, okay? And then, another condition is that, mas mabuting gumamit ka ng partial loading at not entirely on the area, okay? If the area is not that critical, you don't need to add a full load or a full live load on that area. You just need to get a portion of that area which you deem critical or maybe dangerous siya na part, dun mo lang ilalagay yung live load mo. Okay? So, if you have 40 square meter area, okay, and then you figured out na only 20 square meters is actually critical in the design. So yung loading mo, pwede mong ilagay na lang siya sa 20 kilonewton. Yung live load mo, pwede mo na lang siyang ilagay sa 40 kilonewton or 20 square meter. So let me demonstrate you the partial loading. Okay. I hope you can see the screen. Ayan. So if naka-encounter na kayo ng framing plan, elevation na framing plan natin na somewhat framing plan natin is somewhat ganito. So this is actually a two-span and maybe sabihin natin three-story. Ganyan. So, meron tayong mga loading conditions na nakikita nyo if, I don't know if you have seen something like this before. Ito yung load, ito yung dead load, ganyan. So, yan yung uniform na dead load. Okay. Then, meron din tayong dead load here. Dead load in here. Sabihin natin magkaiba yung yung ganun nila, yung magnitude ng dead load. And then, meron din tayong ganito, guys. Yan. And dito naman, meron din ganito. Okay. So, this is, itong dalawang yan, those are actually used, okay, full loading siya. Pero ang partial loading na tinatawag natin is somewhat like this one. Bakit? Okay? Because upon examination, it could be that this part here is the most critical, okay, most critical. When in fact, kapag in-extend mo yung loading dito, wala naman siyang effect dun sa system. Kumbaga, magiging safe pa lalo, okay, magiging safe pa, ganun. So, magpa-partial loading tayo dun sa critical area lang. So, if it was found out that this area is actually the critical, pwede mo na lang, yun na lang, doon mo na lang ilagay yung loading mo. If it will produce you with a higher value of stress, okay, then doon ka mag-loading. Okay, doon ka na mag-loading. So that is what you do when that is how we achieve economy in terms of construction. Okay, so partial loading tayo. So yun lang naman yung gusto kong ipakita so far. Okay, going back to the presentation. We won't be having breaks na guys ha. If you want, you can just eat na lang while I'm lecturing. Okay lang naman yun. Para if matapos tayo ng maaga, we can just dismiss early na lang. Okay, just resume presenting. Okay. Ayan. Okay. So let's move on. Meron tayong uniformly distributed live load. Meron din tayong concentrated live load. Okay. So floors, roofs, and other similar surfaces shall be designed to support the uniformly distributed live loads prescribed in section 4.3, yung kanina. Okay. Or the concentrated load in pounds or kilonewtons given in table 4.3-1. Okay, so that table as well will give you the minimum values of the live loads, okay, the live loads to be used, okay? Whichever produces the greater load effect, yun yung gagamitin natin. Mapa-uniformly distributed or concentrated, okay? So unless otherwise specified, the indicated concentration shall be assumed to be uniformly distributed over an area 2.5 feet by 2.5 feet, okay? And shall be located so as to produce the maximum load effects in the members, okay? So kung walang naka-specify guys, okay, later on, if you're going to use uniformly distributed or maybe the concentrated, okay, the concentrated, okay, yung concentrated load na yan is ita-transform siya into a uniformly distributed load in an area equivalent to 2.5 feet by 2.5 feet. Okay? So kung hindi nyo ma-identify or wala sa specs ng code na Meron kasi sa ibang codes, guys, okay? Meron doon sa code, sa table natin, nag-specify siya ng minimum na concentrated loading. Pero kapag hindi siya na-specify, okay, kung saan siya ilalagay, well, you have to safely assume that that particular concentrated load will be applied to an area 2.5 feet by 2.5 feet on that particular floor. Okay, and it should be located at the most critical, part of your framing system in order to produce the maximum loading effects. Okay, kasi if you achieve the maximum loading effect, mas safe yung building mo. Okay, kasi I believe wala pa namang building na nare-reach yung maximum loading niya unless yung mga nag-collapse na. Okay, yung mga nag-collapse na dati pa. Okay, so far ngayon wala na naririnig na nag-collapse na. Okay. Okay, next is loads on handrail, guardrail, grab bar. Okay, mga ganyan. And vehicle barrier systems and on fixed ladders. Okay, so what is a handrail and guardrail again? Again, what is the difference between the handrail and the guardrail system? Tanungin natin si MJ.
Sir,
What's the difference again between the handrail and the guardrail system?
sir, yung handrail is pwedeng hawakan ng tao, tapos yung guardrail is parang i-prevent niya yung tao para mahulog. Ganun, sir.
Mahulog. Meron ka bang guardrail? Ayaw mo bang ma-fall? Dami mong alam, sir. Ayan. Binara ko na yung sarili ko. Ayan. So if you don't want to fall, you use the guardrail. Handrail naman, it just facilitates or it acts as a guide. Okay, a guide for people. Okay, yung mga handrails natin similar to your stairs. Okay, so that's your handrail and guardrail. Ngayon, yung handrail and guardrail na yan, it should be designed as to resist a single concentrated load of 200 pounds or 0.89 kilonewton applied in any direction at any point on the handrail or top rail to produce the maximum load effect on the structure being considered and to transfer this load through the support structure. Okay. So let me demonstrate that one. Let me give you an illustration. Okay. Okay. So yung handrail natin, assuming this is your stair. Okay. Assuming this is your stair. Yan. This is actually your handrail. So mga ganyan, mga kineneng ganyan, guys. So, handrail. Ayan. So parang ganyan siya. Ganyan effect. Ayan. So this is your handrail. The handrails and the guardrail system should be designed to resist a single concentrated load of 200 pounds in any direction at any point. Okay, so it could be that you can apply the concentrated load here sa gitna, in here, whichever produces the maximum loading. Depends on the shear and moment diagram. Whichever has whichever structure or element in the member has the maximum moment, yun yung i-consider natin for the design. Okay, so I don't know how will you design that, pero you could put it maybe sa gitna. Kasi if you're going to put it here, okay, parang ito mismong member na to will counteract na dito sa force na to. Okay, so that's not the critical part maybe. Okay, I'm just not sure. So these are just assumptions. Okay, so yung concentrator mo ganyan, or pwede din namang perpendicular to the handrail. Okay, kasi at any direction naman siya. So if this is your handrail, okay, you have this stair in here, ganyan. 3D yan ha, ganyan, 3D. This is your handrail. Pwedeng pa ganito naman yung application ng loading. Okay, pwedeng pa ganyan. It depends whichever it depends kung sino yung magpo-provide ng maximum loading. So that is your handrail provision. Okay. Then how about uniform load? So handrails and guardrail systems shall also be designed to resist a load of 50 pounds, okay, per feet, okay, or 0.73 kilonewton per meter applied in any direction along the handrail or top rail, and to transfer this load through the supports to the structures. This load need not to be assumed to act concurrently with the concentrated load specified in section 4.1.5. Okay, so what if naman we have a uniform loading? So we have a uniform loading. So it could be that your uniform loading will be applied in this manner. Okay, ganyan. Okay, so that should be a 0.73 kilonewton per meter. Okay, or pwede ding pag ganito guys, pag ganyan. Parallel siya, or I said normal to the, hala, sinlatan ko na yung normal to the handrail. So, pwede din pa ganyan, 0.73. Okay? So, take note again na hindi kailangan maging concurrent sila. What do we mean when we say concurrent? What do we mean when we say concurrent? What do we mean when we say concurrent? Eljan, ito si Mr. Kalika, the ever-active PICE officer.
Sir, yung papunta sila sa isang point, sir. Same point na.
Same direction at the same time. Okay, so that's what you call concurrent. Okay, so it is applied in the same point, okay, at the same time. Okay, so simultaneous. So it doesn't really need to be concurrent. Okay, pwedeng mauna yung concentrated load, pwedeng mahuli yung concentrated load. Depende sa inyo kung ano yung gusto ninyo guys. But as long as it will produce the maximum loading effect, you can actually do what you want, or you can choose, okay, kung ano yung gusto ninyo. As long as yun nga, mapaproduce na yung maximum loading effect. Okay? Okay. By the way, kailan ang foundation day ninyo while I'm resuming my ganon? Foundation day. May foundation day pa ba?
Next week, sir.
Ay, next week? Walang pasok? May pasok?
Wala po, sir.
Wala, sir.
Wala? Wala talaga?
Wala
Ilang
talaga.
araw yun? Ilang araw?
1 week, sir. 2 weeks ata.
Ilang week?
Depende sa amin, sir.
2 weeks.
2 weeks? Grabe naman, walang pasok ng 2 weeks.